38,000 feet above the Atlantic. Both engines are dead. 300 people are about to find out if the pilot in the left seat is the best in the world, or just another name on a memorial wall. Today I'm counting down 10 flights that should have ended in fire and twisted metal, but didn't. Planes that lost engines, lost roofs, even lost pilots halfway out the cockpit window. And the last story on this list? No simulator has ever been able to replicate what that crew did. Not once. Not ever. Stay with me, because these are the 10 greatest aviation miracles in history. Number 10. LOT, Polish Airlines, Flight 16. Warsaw, November 2011. A Boeing 767 is returning from Newark with 231 people on board. The captain reaches down to lower the landing gear, and nothing happens. He tries the backup, nothing. He tries the emergency gravity drop, still nothing. The wheels are locked inside the belly of the aircraft. Captain Tadeusz Rona circles Warsaw for over an hour, burning off fuel while crews foam the runway. Then he does something almost no commercial pilot ever trains for in a real jet. He lands a 767 directly on its belly. The plane screams down the runway in a shower of sparks, skids for nearly a mile, and stops. The doors open. Every single person walks off. Not one injury. Number 9. British Airways, Flight 5390. June 1990, over the English countryside. A small passenger jet is climbing through 17,000 feet. Captain Tim Lancaster loosens his seatbelt. The co-pilot is sipping tea. Then, without warning, the left windscreen explodes outward. The captain is ripped from his seat and sucked halfway through the window. His legs catch on the flight controls. The rest of his body is outside the aircraft, being battered at 400 miles an hour in freezing air. A flight attendant lunges forward, grabs his belt, and holds on. For 20 minutes. While the co-pilot, alone, screaming over the wind, lands the plane at Southampton. Everyone assumed the captain was dead. He wasn't. Broken arm, frostbite, bruises, back flying within 5 months. Number 8. TACA, Flight 110, New Orleans, May 1988. A Boeing 737 descends into a massive thunderstorm. Hail the size of golf balls shatters the windscreen. Both engines flood with water and flame out simultaneously. Captain Carlos Dardano, a pilot with only one functioning eye, realizes he will never make the airport. He is over swampland. Every option is death. And then he spots a narrow grass levee beside a NASA facility, no wider than a 2-lane road. He threads the needle. He touches down. The aircraft stops. Not a single injury. Boeing engineers later replaced the engines and flew that same plane off that same strip of grass. It kept flying for another 28 years. Number 7. Qantas Flight 32. Singapore, November 2010. An Airbus A380, the largest passenger aircraft ever built, takes off with 469 people on board. 4 minutes in, engine number 2 explodes. Shrapnel tears through the wing, fuel sprays into the air. The cockpit lights up with over 600 separate system failures. Captain Richard de Crespigny has 5 pilots in the cockpit that day, a training coincidence that saves everyone's lives. For nearly 2 hours they work through failure after failure, manually recalculating everything, because the computers can't cope. He lands the A380 at Changi with 100 meters of runway to spare. Fuel is pouring onto a hot engine that refuses to shut down. Fire crews douse it for 3 hours. Every single person walks off unharmed. Number 6. Air Transat, Flight 236. August 2001, halfway across the Atlantic. An Airbus A330 has a ruptured fuel line, and the crew doesn't realize it. They transfer fuel from the good tank into the leaking one, and by the time they understand what's happening, both engines have quit. They are 65 miles from the nearest runway, a tiny airbase in the Azores. Captain Robert Pichet, a former Bush pilot, begins the longest unpowered glide in commercial aviation history. No thrust, minimal hydraulics. In 18 minutes of absolute silence, he lands the A330 on the first attempt. Tires burst, brakes catch fire, but 306 people walk away alive. Real quick, if you're enjoying this so far, hit the subscribe button. It's completely free, it takes 1 second, and it's the single biggest thing you can do to help this channel keep making videos like this one. We cover aviation disasters and survival stories every week, so tap subscribe, ring the bell, and let's get back to the list. Because the next 5 stories are the craziest ones. Number 5, Aloha Airlines Flight 243, Hawaii, April 1988. A Boeing 737 is cruising at 24,000 feet between Hilo and Honolulu. And then, with a sound like a shotgun blast, an 18-foot section of the fuselage roof tears clean off the airplane. And passengers in the front cabin are suddenly staring straight up at the sky. Wind is ripping through at 300 miles an hour. A flight attendant is pulled out of the aircraft and lost to the ocean. She is the only fatality. The pilots cannot hear, cannot speak, cannot read half their instruments. But the floor beams are holding the nose and tail together by inches, and they somehow land the plane at Kahului. That accident changed how every airline in the world inspects aircraft forever. Number 4, British Airways Flight 9, June 1982, over the Indian Ocean at night. A Boeing 747 is cruising at 37,000 feet when passengers notice a strange blue glow on the engines. Then engine 4 flames out, then 2, then 3, then 1. All 4 engines dead. Captain Eric Moody makes the calmest announcement in aviation history. "Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We have a small problem. All 4 engines have stopped. I trust you are not in too much distress. The 747 is now a 400-ton glider. They have 16 minutes before they hit the ocean. What they don't know is that they have flown straight through a cloud of volcanic ash, and it has melted inside the engines like glass. As they descend, the ash cools and breaks loose. One engine restarts, then another, then all 4. They land in Jakarta through a windscreen so sandblasted the captain can only see through a 2-inch strip. Number 3, the Gimli glider, Canada, July 1983, a brand new Boeing 767. 61 passengers, 8 crew. One small problem. Canada has just switched to the metric system, and somebody converted the fuel load using pounds instead of kilograms. Thus, the aircraft takes off with less than half the fuel it needs. At 41,000 feet, the left engine quits, then the right. Most of the cockpit instruments go dark. Captain Bob Pearson has one advantage nobody else would have. He is a glider pilot in his spare time. He aims for an abandoned Air Force base at Gimli, not knowing it has been converted into a drag racing strip, with a race happening that afternoon. He lines up. The nose gear collapses on touchdown, which turns out to be lucky because it creates the extra braking needed to stop before the crowd. Nobody is hurt. The aircraft was repaired and flew for another 25 years. Pilots nicknamed it the Gimli glider for the rest of its life. Number 2, U.S. Airways Flight 1549, New York City, January 2009. 90 seconds after takeoff from LaGuardia, an Airbus A320 flies straight into a flock of geese. Both engines ingest birds. Both engines die. Captain Chesley Sullenberger has 208 seconds to decide what to do with 155 lives. He cannot make LaGuardia. He cannot make Teterboro. Every option is over one of the most densely populated cities on Earth. So, he picks the Hudson River. He glides an unpowered jet between Manhattan skyscrapers, lines it up perfectly with the water, holds the nose at exactly the right angle, and sets the plane down so gently the fuselage stays intact. Ferries reach the aircraft within 3 minutes. Every passenger, all 155, is rescued. Investigators concluded that any deviation from Sully's exact decisions by even a few seconds, and everyone would have died. And number 1, the United Airlines Flight 232, Iowa, July 1989. A DC-10 is cruising at 37,000 feet when the tail engine explodes. Shrapnel severs all 3 hydraulic systems, something the designers had calculated was mathematically impossible, 1 in a billion. Without hydraulics, the pilots cannot move the rudder, they cannot move the elevators, they cannot move anything. The aircraft is flying itself, and it is slowly rolling over. Captain Al Haynes, his crew, and an off-duty instructor named Dennis Fitch, who happened to be a passenger, do something no training manual has ever described. They control the airplane using only the thrust levers of the two remaining engines. One forward, one back, to turn. More thrust to climb, less to descend. For 44 minutes, they wrestle the aircraft towards Sioux City. They hit the runway too fast, too steep, rolling to one side. The aircraft cartwheels and breaks into pieces. Of the 296 people on board, 184 survive. And here is why this is number one. Every simulator test afterward, dozens of experienced crews given the same scenario, knowing exactly what was coming. Every single one crashed with no survivors. Nobody has ever been able to repeat what the crew did. Nobody. 10 flights. 10 moments where everything should have ended in tragedy and didn't. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.